Hi, Grace Baptist Church. It's good to talk to you again today as we continue down the path of discussing the one another's. I'm just very appreciative of Caleb's introduction a couple of weeks ago as he discussed the loving one another, and Pastor Mark discussed the overview of the one another's found in the Bible. As we look at our creation, we look at one another, we realize that it is only through loving one another and following the one another's that we have a path to peace. Today, I'd like to continue on that discussion and talk about two things. One is that Jesus said we need to forgive one another. The second is that we would pray for one another. And in a lot of ways, those go hand in hand, but sometimes, obviously, we would pray for one another, and it's not that we would forgive or ask for forgiveness from one another, but there are many things to pray for each other, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But first, I'd like to talk about forgiving one another. We know that Jesus said that if we don't forgive, we won't be forgiven. But in a very practical sense, we can understand that a lack of forgiveness is debilitating. It keeps us from fully recognizing who we can be. It causes us to carry baggage, and it is divisive. It creates division, and so therefore we understand, at least academically, we understand that forgiveness needs to happen. How we practically do that is a completely different story. And from my own past, I can tell you that there have been some issues in my life as a young man that it took me a long time to forgive people for, specifically one person. And I knew I was supposed to forgive. I knew that I needed to forgive, but I also knew that I couldn't lie to God. I couldn't just say that I had forgiven them when I really hadn't. And so I started out by talking to God about understanding. I owned it. First of all, I owned it. I said, God, I know I need to forgive this person, and I can say I forgive them all day long, but the reality is I don't, and you know I don't. You know that I'm not fully given over to forgiveness. And so I started out by asking him for a measure of his forgiveness towards that person. And little by little, as I prayed and prayed and prayed, there came a day when I was able to fully forgive them, and that there was absolutely nothing left. And since that day, I still use prayer quite often for forgiveness, and my desire is to forgive as Jesus forgives. He says that when he forgives, he throws our sin as far as the east is from the west. So my goal, my heart, is to forgive and move on. And that takes time, it takes discipline, but it's just like building muscle. We're building our spiritual muscle, and the more we work out, the lighter the load is. And also because the fact is that Jesus owns our burdens. He owns our troubles. And if we give them over to him, he takes care of the details. And so I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful that perseverance is a big deal in the Bible, that perseverance is a big part of forgiveness, and that forgiveness is completely freeing. You are completely free. God said, if the Son has set you free, you are free indeed. And so that's just an exciting reality. And so I really press into Jesus for that forgiveness. Along with that forgiveness is just the realization that people are different. And again, that might seem academic, but people are different, and how we process things, how we receive information, how we receive communication, it's very different for each person. And unfortunately, I personally am not very good at reading people. Now, I expect that to change because I am praying about it. But right now, today, I'm still working on learning how to read people, because my heart's desire is that they would receive the gospel and that I would be empathetic to where they are, just as Jesus is empathetic to where I am. And so that's a big part of my prayer life, and also just our understanding of, forgiveness. If forgiveness comes easy for me, then most of the things that used to offend me immediately, I'm just really not even going to notice, because my heart is going to be that people would come to Jesus, that we would all grow in grace and mercy and truth, and that one day when we're all together in heaven, we'll just be so busy rejoicing and glorifying God that we won't even remember this time that we're in right now. That's also one thing that I like to remind my kids and the constituents in the classes that I teach, and just that, a year from now, most of the stuff that's bothering us, we're not even going to remember. So getting past it quickly is very freeing for us. And so let's talk a minute about prayer, because prayer is a big part of forgiveness. It's absolutely critical for me personally. There's a lot of things that we can pray for one another. We can pray for one another's health. We can pray for jobs. We can pray for spiritual growth, spiritual maturity. We can pray just that, that God would open the eyes of our hearts to his plan and his purpose, that he would give us wisdom, praying for great wisdom. I was reading it in Proverbs this morning, just some of that wisdom literature, and just that discussion about wisdom, and just to get wisdom, and just to seek God's mind, to seek his face. And he provides all we need for that, and for his riches and glory. And so prayer is a big part of that, and it's a big part of walking through the Bible as well. A lot of times what I'll do in my prayer life is I will read the Bible and I will pray it back over and over again. Sometimes from the perspective of just purely worshiping God, just purely, giving my heart and mind and soul to his purpose in that moment, that I'm able to hear what he would want me to hear. And sometimes just a culling of my spirit in an area where I know I'm struggling, or I know I need help, or maybe praying back the scriptures for somebody else. And so that's super powerful when we do that. The other part of prayer that I like to mention is that just some food for thought. One of the things that I've taught, and there are many models for prayer, but my kids and the Awana Club and Sunday school, we've taught the ACTS model, which is ACTS, which is adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. The adoration, just recognizing God for who he is. Confession, most of us know what that is. It's asking God for forgiveness, not just for what we've purposefully done, sins of commission, but also for what we failed to do, sins of omission. And so just praying that and clearing our minds to transition into the T part, which is thanksgiving, and just being thankful for where we're at and what God's doing. And there are a number of things that I'm thankful for. And then supplication, which is also what I call the big ask, right? So a lot of people, myself for sure, always am asking for something, it seems like. And so as we use that model, and like I said, there are other models, I just encourage people to try to have a balance in there. And so I've teased my kids before. It's like, we go through the adoration. Hey, God, you're awesome. Confession. God, forgive me for my sins. Thanksgiving. God, thanks for my mom and dad. And then the supplication, we're talking to him for an hour. And so the desire is that we really focus on the balance of that in our worship as we think about what God would have us do in our communion with him. Well, Grace Baptist Church, it's great to talk to you today. I'm praying for you. The elders are praying for you. We're praying through this COVID-19 time. We're seeking the mind of God, and just pray that you'll be blessed. Take care.